and let us all do we can to build a better future.
I didn't have this on my bingo card. Now, I know that people are entitled to an opinion, and I believe in the First Amendment. Free speech through and through. But this was not on my bingo card. Where I saw an article from Politico basically whitewash history or reimagine history and interpret it for the times we're living in now. Now, I'm pretty sure we all know about the Second World War, the Allied powers versus the Axis powers, where, again, it was one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. Millions upon millions of lives impacted for forever, and that we are still dealing with the consequences and repercussions of that war to this very day. But Politico decided to do a big brain article, and it's an opinion piece. We're all entitled to an opinion. And it's written by none other than Kyle Giles, right? Came out yesterday. And many people will probably be talking about it. You might have already seen the tweets already from it. But let's share it. Let's talk about Politico. I never thought I'd read this. Fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. Well, if you are in the Wehrmacht of the Third Reich, you are part of the Nazi regime and you are fighting for the Nazi ideology. What? Politico, are you trying to rewrite history? In real time? Canada's Hunka scandal. Remember that jagoff of the Waffen-SS, that Ukrainian Nazi in the Canadian Parliament? Canada's Hunka scandal is a demonstration of how, when history is complicated, it can be a gift to propagandists who exploit to appeal of simplicity. So in other words, this article is going to be blame Russia and that, if you're fighting the USSR, you weren't necessarily a bad guy. Still, a lot of those soldiers of the Third Reich were following orders. A lot of those guys were following orders and doing some terrible, terrible things. So, hey, don't whatever you do, never share this image with liberals. Those are U.S. forces with Soviet forces doing a handshake. That'll trigger the libs. Now, hold on. Again, we got Kyle Giles is an author and commentator. His most recent book, Russia's War on Everybody, because Russia's going after all of us, looks at the effects that Russia's malign influence around the world has on ordinary people, because none of you have the ability to think critically. That's what this article is going to be telling you. Everybody knows that a lie can make it halfway around the world before the truth has even got its boots on. Oh, goodness gracious, Cretaceous. And the ongoing turmoil over Canada's parliament recognizing former SS trooper Yosef Hunka highlights one of the most important reasons why. Sometimes that's untrue, but simple is far more persuasive than a complicated, nuanced truth. Nuanced truth. Oh, how lovely. A major problem for Western democracies trying to fight disinformation and propaganda by countering with the truth, and one reason why fact-checking and debunking are only limited use for doing so. In the case of Hunka, the mass outrage stems from his enlistment with one of the foreign legions of the Waffen-SS. Remember, SS, those were the real bad guys. The really, 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 really bad guys. Not good people. If you open up the book or check on your Google phone or whatever, you check up the SS, you'll realize that they got a whole list of atrocities right behind them. And again, the Waffen-SS fighting Soviet forces on Germany's Eastern Front, and its demonstration of how, when history is complicated, can be a gift to propagandists who exploit to appeal of simplicity. The history is complicated because fighting against the USSR at the time didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. Oh, great. Hey, everybody. History is rewritten. Again, what I find interesting for this political article is that, during that time in Germania, you had to swear fealty to the state. You think the Nazis were going to be just like, oh, you don't want to be one of us? That's fine. What a progressive liberal thought. We're just going to let you mind your own business. No, Everyone had to swear fealty to the state, obedience to the state, to the Führer. People tend to forget that. Or at least this article for the Politico is trying to help you forget that. Hold on, folks. It gets even crazier. It gets even crazier. Just someone who had the excruciating choice over which of these two terror regimes to resist. Oh my goodness, two terror regimes. Which one to resist? However, the idea that foreign volunteers and conscripts were allowed allocation to the Waffen SS rather than the Wehrmacht on administration rather than ideological grounds is a hard sell for audiences conditioned to believe the SS primary task was genocide. Well, it kind of was. It kind of was, you know. I mean, again, maybe to simplify history, yeah, the SS were the real bad guys. Goodness gracious, was this on your bingo card? Turns out, you know, guess what? Audiences, hey, guess what? Their primary task just wasn't just genocide; it was also building bridges, and getting ready for the school bake-off on Sunday. And simple narratives like everybody in the SS was guilty of war crimes, because majority of them were, are more persuasive because they're much simpler to grasp. My goodness! All right, we gotta watch Inglourious Bastards after this. For those who don't know, on Rumble, we have movie night, 8 p.m. Central. We're watching Inglourious Bastards. So continuing on, moving forward, Canada's enemies have thus latched on to these simple narratives alongside concerned citizens in Canada itself, and the misstep over Hunka being used by Russia and its backer. Hey, first of all, Putin didn't do a mind trick on the Canadian Parliament. All right, Canadian Parliament, Trudeau, and all those people in there, they let that guy just waltz on in. All right, no one told him to stand up applause, but they did. Anyways, continuing on. So, again, with the misstep over Hunka being used by Russia and its backers to attack Ukraine, Canada, and each country's association with the other. According to Russia's ambassador in Canada, Hunka's unit committed multiple war crimes, including mass murder against the Russian people, ethnic Russians. This is a proven fact. But whenever a Russian official calls something a proven fact, it should set off alarms. Politico, what are you doing? I just want to click copy and paste this article and share it in the live stream. So that way all of you have it too. Screenshot it, save it. See, this is the problem with Russiagate, liberals. Vote blue no matter who. Again, vote blue. Are you goose stepping with the Third Reich? Because it looks like you are. Continuing on, and sure enough, here too, the facts were invented out of thin air. Repeated exhaustive investigations, including by not only the Nuremberg trials, but also the British, Canadian, even Soviet authorities, led to the conclusion that no war crimes or atrocities have been committed by this particular unit. I don't believe you, Politico. You have made mistakes before in the past. In this article, we're not even done yet, folks. But this is the latest twisty twist in a long-running campaign by the Russian embassy in Ottawa, dating back to even the Soviet times when the USSR would leverage accusations of Nazi collaboration for political purposes as part of its active measures operations. Hey, Politico, you've heard of Operation Paperclip, right? No one tell the vote blue no matter who people how we got to the moon. Oh man. If you think Trump living rent-free in their head was bad, wait till they find out how we got to the moon. And given Moscow's own history of aggression and atrocities during World War II and its aftermath, there's special cynicism underlying the Russian accusations. Russia feels comfortable shouting about Nazis, real or imaginary, just like the liberals and SJWs from 2016 through 2020. Here, let me clear my throat out one more time. Just like how all the liberals did in 2016 through 2020. Because remember, if you disagree with one of them, you know, the SJW group, you know, you don't fall in line with their puritanical thought, you too are called a member of the Third Reich. I remember that. Hell, Liberals, you have a special book called Everyone I Don't Like is a Nazi. So there you go. In Ukraine or elsewhere, because unlike Nazi Germany, leaders and soldiers of the Soviet Union were never put on trial for their war crimes. Well, yeah, yes, the Soviet Union did commit crimes. So did everybody else during that horrifying conflict, right? But see, the thing is, though, the Soviets were our allies. I know history's very complicated. You can't simplify it. They were our allies. They were our allies, and they're the ones that took Berlin. Russia clings to the Nuremberg trials as a benchmark of legitimacy because of its victorious power. It was never subjected to the same reckoning, and yet both before and after the collaborative effort to carve up Eastern Europe between them, the Soviets and the Nazis had so much in common that it's now illegal to point these similarities out in Russia. Okay. Yeah, it's not just the enemies of democracies that are subscribing to the seductively simple. Jewish advocacy groups in Canada have been understandably loud in their condemnation of Hunka's recognition. But here, too, accusations risk of being influenced more by misconception and supposition than history and evidence. Oh, my goodness. So, wait a minute now, Politico. You're going after the Jewish advocacy groups? What's going on? Does anybody know what's going on? Don't worry, folks. Listen, the way 2023 is going to end, 2024 is going to be a complete crazy batshite show. It's going to be hilarious. The Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center registered its outrage, noting that Hunka's units' crimes against humanity during the Holocaust were well documented, a statement that doesn't seem to have any more substance than the accusation by Russia. Now, wait a minute. Hold on there. You certain about that, Politico? Because this is an opinion piece, but Politico, the fact that no one in higher management didn't really look at this over, not once but twice, be like, hey, are you whitewashing history? Are you trying to rewrite history here? Because again, Canada's parliament trying to go after the World Heavyweight Championship of stupid is they were the ones who applauded a freaking Nazi. Hell, the University of Alberta had a fund program in his name that was started in 2019. No one does a background check anymore. No one does their job anymore. Isn't that sad? No one does their job anymore. In fact, during previous investigations of the same group carried out by Canadian commissions of inquiry, Simon Wiesenthal himself was found to have made broad accusations that were found to be nearly totally useless and put the Canadian government to a considerable amount of purposeless work. The result of all of this is that otherwise intelligent people are now trying to outdo each other in a choir of evidence-free condemnation. Oh, wow, great. In Parliament itself, Canadian Conservative MP Melissa Lantsman called Hunka a monster. Well, hold on, members of Parliament. All of you stood up and applaud. Now, maybe some of you didn't know, but seriously, maybe look at the itinerary. Just find, hey, from here on out going forward, find out who you're going to have in your fantastic Parliament. Meanwhile, Poland's education minister appears to have decided to first see Hunka's extradition to Poland, then try and determine whether he has actually committed any crime afterward. And the ostracism is now extending to members of Hunka's family, born long after any possible crime could have been committed during World War II. Again, the episode shows that dealing with complex truths is hard but essential. Oh, wow. Thank you, Politico. Without you, even I wouldn't know what to do or think. Unfortunately, though, a debunking or fact-checking approach to countering disinformation relies on an audience willing to put in the time and effort to read the accurate version of events and be interested in discovering it in the first place. Well, let's see. All right, Hunka was part of the Waffen-SS, associated with the Third Reich, the Nazi regime. Those are the bad guys. Simple as that. Okay? Hooray. Bad guys. Eastern Front. A lot of stuff went down on the Eastern Front. So, yeah. Very simple. To the point. So, continuing on. This means debunking mainly works for specific audiences like government officials, analysis, academics, and some journalists. So, in other words, this article is saying that you, the average person, are too stupid to figure this out. Here we go. But most of the rest of us, especially when scrolling through social media, are instead likely to have superficial and fleeting interests, which means a lengthy exposition of why a given piece of information is wrong will be far less likely to reach us and have an impact. Oh, thank you, Politico, for thinking for me. In the Hunka case, commentary taking a more balanced view of the complex history does exist, but it's rare. And when it does occur, it is by unfortunate necessity very long, a direct contrast to most propaganda narratives that are successfully spread by Russia. Oh my God, and its agents. Sadly, an idea simple enough to fit on a t-shirt is vastly more powerful than a rebuttal that has to start with, well, actually. No one likes that, well, actually, anyways. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has now issued an apology. And again, he kept on blaming Russia. Trudeau, no one in your team looked into Hunka's background? Come on. Again, Trudeau has issued an apology in his own name over Hunka's ovation too. However, any further discussion of the error has to be carefully phrased now, as any suggestion that Canada is now showing contrition for honoring a Nazi would acquiesce to rewriting history by Russia and its backers and concede to allegations of Hunka's guilt that have no basis in evidence. Okay, but he's part of the Waffen SS, okay? On the Eastern Front. And according to that speaker, he was fighting against the Russians. Now, again, both sides on the Eastern Front during the Second World War, yeah, a lot of stuff went down. Very brutal, very horrific. But again, Hunka was with the Nazis. He was all in for Hitler and his fantastic friends. It's true, Hunka never should have been invited to the Canada's House of Commons, but it's not because he himself might be guilty of any crime. Oh, I love that right there. Look at that sentence. But it's not because he himself might be guilty of any crime. Rightly or wrongly, on an issue so toxic, it was inevitable the invitation would provide a golden opportunity for Russian propaganda. Well, first of all, everyone in Canada's parliament screwed up, okay? Putin didn't make the itinerary. Putin didn't set the table. Putin didn't turn the cameras on. Putin didn't write the speech for the House Speaker or then House Speaker Anthony Rota to speak or praise Hunka, okay? Russia had nothing to do with it. Canada dropped its pants and showed everyone its wazoo by honoring that jagoff Nazi, okay? So yeah, people are going to talk about it because as soon as everyone heard during the Second World War, he was fighting against the Russians. Well, wait, who was helping him out at the time? Because the Soviets were our allies. No one bothers to look into that. Yeah, I mean, does no one not think? But yet, hey, this article is rewriting history. So apparently now, Politico, through this opinion piece, to be very clear, through this opinion piece is basically saying to you, fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi. Well, you know what? I never thought that corporate media could hit a new low, even through opinion pieces. But this is downright pathetic. So, even now, we are witnessing our media and the liberal establishment try and rewrite history in real time before all of us. So, maybe I should give you guys a choice, an option. I know, while there's still a chance to have democracy out there. Yes, I know, democracy. What is that? It's a controversial word. Hey, type 1 if you agree with this political article that, you know what? Fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you a Nazi because even if they were to write an article fighting against the Allies, I'm wondering how that would work. Fighting against the Allies doesn't necessarily make you a Nazi. Type 1 if you agree with that political article and you would agree with other titles written similarly like that. Type 2, hell no! This article's BS. Why are they rewriting history? Who approved of this and why? You know what I call articles like this? The rent was due. The rent was due. And this dude really pulled one out of his wazoo. I have to say it, corporate media. You really know how to hit those home run homers. I am thoroughly impressed at the depths of that which you're willing to fall down in.